Welcome to G Fun Facts Online, where we unpack the science behind the world you think you know. Today, we're stepping into the courtroom. Picture the scene. A witness, hand raised, points a finger across the room and says with absolute certainty, "That's the one. That's the person who did it." For centuries, that was considered the gold standard of evidence. But what if I told you that witness could be completely honest, completely sincere, and at the same time, completely wrong? Today, we're putting the human mind on trial. Well, explore why your memory is less like a video camera and more like a constantly edited Wikipedia page. We'll dive into the dramatic and dangerous memory wars that led to false accusations and ruined lives. And we'll unravel the difference between being insane and being incompetent in the eyes of the law. This is the story of how the invisible contents of our minds become the most critical evidence in the pursuit of justice. For much of legal history, eyewitness memory was treated with a kind of naive reverence. But science tells a much more complicated story. Your memory isn't a device that faithfully records an event and stores it perfectly for later playback. Instead, it's a reconstructive process, and it's shockingly easy to distort. To understand why, we need to look at the three stages of memory: encoding, storage, and retrieval. Encoding is the moment of imprint, when you first perceive something and your brain translates it into a storable format. The accuracy of this initial recording is massively affected by the circumstances. One of the biggest factors is stress. You'd think a traumatic, high-stress event would be seared into your memory forever, right? The term flashbulb memory even suggests this. But research shows the opposite is often true. When your brain is overwhelmed by a fight-or-flight response, it narrows its focus. This leads to something called the weapon focus effect. If a criminal is holding a gun, a witness's attention can become so glued to that weapon that their brain fails to properly encode crucial details, like the perpetrator's face, clothes, or car. They remember the gun, but not the person holding it. Another huge factor is the cross-race effect. Decades of research have shown, without a doubt, that people are significantly better at identifying faces of their own race. This isn't about prejudice, it's about perceptual expertise. You're simply better at distinguishing the unique facial features of the race you interact with most. In a courtroom, this means a cross-race identification is statistically more likely to be wrong. In fact, about 1.5 times more likely. This bias has been a major factor in countless wrongful convictions. Once a memory is encoded, it has to be stored. Think of this as putting a file in a cabinet, but this isn't a locked, fireproof cabinet. The memory trace is fragile, and new information can contaminate it. This is where we get the misinformation effect, a phenomenon pioneered by the brilliant cognitive psychologist Elizabeth Loftus. In her most famous study, she showed participants a video of a car accident. Later, she asked one group, how fast were the cars going when they hit each other? And another group, how fast were the cars going when they smashed into each other? The smashed group not only gave higher speed estimates, but a week later, they were far more likely to falsely remember seeing broken glass in the video. There was no broken glass. The word smashed was enough to rewrite their memory. Imagine what this means in a real case. A witness overhears another witness, sees a news report, or is asked a leading question by an investigator. That new, misleading information can become woven into the original memory. The witness isn't lying when they testify. They are telling their truth, but their truth has been contaminated without them even knowing. Finally, there's retrieval, the act of remembering. This process is also full of pitfalls. The way a question is asked, or the way a police lineup is conducted, can completely change what a person remembers. These are called system variables, because it's the system that can and should control them. In response to flawed, old-school police interviews, psychologists developed the cognitive interview. Instead of firing off rapid questions, this technique uses psychology to help witnesses access more accurate information. It involves asking the witness to mentally reinstate the context. What was the weather like? How were you feeling? It encourages them to report every single detail, no matter how trivial. It even has them recall the event in reverse order. This method can get significantly more correct information from a witness. Similarly, police lineup procedures have undergone major reforms. Best practices now include double-blind administration, where the officer running the lineup doesn't know who the suspect is. Preventing any unconscious cues. Fillers in the lineup must match the witness description so the suspect doesn't stick out. And witnesses are shown photos one at a time, sequentially, rather than all at once. This encourages them to compare each photo to their memory, not just pick the person who looks most like the culprit from a group. These reforms are crucial because the fallibility of memory has had devastating consequences, which brings us to one of the most controversial periods in modern psychology, the memory wars. The 1980s and 90s saw a surge of cases where adults, often in therapy, suddenly recovered memories of horrific childhood abuse. This ignited a fierce debate. On one side, some therapists argued that the mind could repress trauma for decades. On the other, cognitive scientists like Elizabeth Loftus argued that these memories were often being unintentionally created by therapists through the power of suggestion. Loftus famously demonstrated how easily this could happen with her Lost in the Mall study. She was able to convince people they had a detailed memory of being lost in a shopping mall as a child, an event that was completely made up. The research suggested that suggestive therapy techniques, like hypnosis or guided imagery, weren't uncovering memories, they were building them. This scientific debate exploded into a real-world moral panic known as the Satanic Panic. Across North America, claims of secret, satanic cults performing ritual abuse on children spread like wildfire. In the infamous McMartin preschool trial, children made increasingly bizarre and horrifying allegations. Investigations later revealed these memories were the product of highly suggestive and coercive interviews by social workers who already believed the cults existed. The panic led to numerous wrongful convictions, with innocent people spending years in prison based on fantastically false memories created in the minds of children. The legacy of the memory wars is a legal system that is now far more cautious. A witness' emotional conviction is no guarantee of a memory's authenticity. Beyond the twists and turns of memory, the justice system also has to grapple with the complexities of mental illness. This brings us to two legal concepts that are often confused: competency to stand trial and the insanity defense. Competency to stand trial has nothing to do with the person's mental state at the time of the crime. It's about their mental state right now, at the time of the trial. The law says a defendant must have a rational and factual understanding of the charges against them and be able to assist their lawyer in their own defense. If they can't, the trial is paused, and they are sent for treatment to restore their competency. The insanity defense, on the other hand, is all about the defendant's state of mind at the moment the crime was committed. It's one of the most misunderstood ideas in law. Public perception, fueled by TV dramas, is that it's a common loophole for guilty people to escape justice. The reality? The insanity defense is used in less than 1% of all felony cases, and it's only successful in about a quarter of those. And a successful plea doesn't mean you walk free. It means you are committed to a secure psychiatric hospital, often for longer than you would have been in prison. The legal standard for insanity was famously shaped by the case of John Hinckley Jr., who attempted to assassinate President Ronald Reagan in 1981. Hinckley was found not guilty by reason of insanity, leading to a massive public outcry. In response, many states and the federal government made their insanity laws much stricter, focusing on a simple question: at the time of the crime, did the defendant, due to a severe mental disease, know that what they were doing was wrong? That's a very high bar to clear. To make these incredibly difficult determinations, courts rely on forensic psychologists. They use a whole toolkit of interviews, assessments, and personality tests to evaluate a defendant. One of their biggest challenges is spotting malingering, when someone is faking or exaggerating symptoms to avoid prosecution. But as we look to the future, the psychologist toolkit is getting a high-tech upgrade, bringing new possibilities and new problems. In recent years, neuroimaging techniques like fMRI scans have allowed scientists to watch the brain in action. This has raised the tantalizing prospect of using brain scans as evidence. Could a scan objectively prove someone has a brain abnormality that impairs their self-control? Or could it even function as a perfect lie detector? Brain scans have been admitted in some cases, but the courts remain extremely cautious. An fMRI scan measures blood flow, not thoughts. The results are based on averages from groups of people, and applying that data to one specific individual is scientifically tricky. So for now, the idea of a guilty or innocent brain scan remains in the realm of science fiction. Finally, there's the CSI effect. The huge popularity of forensic science TV shows has created unrealistic expectations for jurors. They now expect to see sophisticated, high-tech evidence in every single case. When it's not presented, and it often isn't available, they may be more likely to acquit, even if other evidence is strong. This shows how popular culture itself can influence the delicate balance of justice. So, where does this leave us? The journey from a witnessed event to a courtroom verdict is a minefield of human frailty. We know now that memory is not a perfect record, but a fragile reconstruction. We know that the mind, under duress or illness, operates by rules we are only just beginning to understand. The pursuit of justice requires a constant dialogue between science and law, and a deep humility in the face of the mind's enduring mysteries. It demands that we build a system that acknowledges our own fallibility and strives to base its monumental decisions not on the illusion of certainty, but on the most reliable truth our imperfect human systems can find.